Comic books and their movies say mutants are only those with the X gene. Well, I say, and science says, we are all mutants. Without it, we would all look the same and that would be extremely boring. So, how exactly are we mutants? It all boils down once again to DNA. Let's have a little recap. Genes are the segments of your DNA that contains the manual on how to build proteins, which in turn are the building blocks of your body. Proteins do all sorts of things like transport nutrients and waste within your cells, provide structural support, speed up all the chemical process in your body, etc. Bottom line, like buying an IKEA bed, proteins are the tools to make it, while DNA are the letters in the manual that tells you how to put them together. One little change in this manual produces a multitude of effects. Sometimes they don't do anything. Other times they can cause cancer, and sometimes death. And other times they can change your appearance or grant you certain abilities. Although humans may not be able to walk through walls, turn themselves completely into ice, or be able to fly through the sky, there are still cool mutations that, when it's not deadly, have created some pretty unique people. In this video, I'll be counting down some of these people who have medically verified genetic abilities, or to put it in a more interesting way, the superhumans among us. Coming in at number 5, super strength. 13-year-old Liam Hawkstra could very well be real-life Hulk, but without the green skin or the always angry attitude. At 3 years old, he was dubbed as the world's strongest toddler when they found a mutation in his MSTN gene, which encodes for a protein called myostatin. This rare genetic condition limits him from producing that protein, which in turn leads to increased muscle mass and inability to hold fat. As such, he had 40% more muscles than kids his age and was already able to do chin-ups at 1 year old. He might not be able to lift cars or houses now, but he can lift heavy weights easier than anyone of his age and is wired to excel in any muscle-related activities without much training. The only downside is that he needs to eat twice as much to keep up with his muscle growth. Number 4, super endurance. Eero Mantaranta was a popular Finnish Olympic skiing champion in the 1960s who had won so many medals that they thought he did some doping. When they got him tested, they found that his red blood cell count was 20% higher than normal. More tests show that he and over 200 of his relatives had a very unique mutation to their EPOR gene, which stands for erythropoietin receptor, that causes it to be always on the on mode, meaning that he naturally produced a larger amount of red blood cells. Therefore, since his blood was able to carry 50% more oxygen to keep his muscles going, he was able to exert himself and remain active for a longer time than any other humans. Popular superheroes who have this kind of ability are Batman and his Bat People, Beast, Captain America, and Captain Marvel. Woo! Number 3, super flexibility. Horror movies love this guy. Javier Botet is a Spanish actor who appeared in The Conjuring, Crimson Peak, The Mummy, It, Insidious, and lately Slender Man. Botet was born with a condition called Marfan syndrome, in which his FBN1 gene that makes the protein fibrillin-1 is mutated, affecting his connective tissues and thus making him to be super flexible. In most severe cases, this syndrome can actually cause death as it affects heart tissues and organs, but in Botet's mild case, it just made him unusually tall, gain longer limbs, and have an abnormal flexibility. Superheroes with the likes of this power is Mr. Fantastic, Elongated Man, Thin Man, and Elastigirl from Incredibles. Of course, while he can't exactly stretch his limbs as far like them, he and others like him can do some pretty cool stuff. Number 2, pain immunity. Tim Cridland, aka Zamora the Torture King, was a famous circus performer who specialized in sword eating, fire eating, body electrocution, and other dangerous stunts involving extreme pain. He had a genetic disorder called congenital insensitivity to pain, which is caused by either the SCN9A gene or the PMRD12 gene. Either way, mutations in these genes affects how his nerves convey pain signals to each other. His mutations are on par with the likes of Deadpool, Wolverine, and Ghost Rider. Now look, it may seem cool to not feel pain, but it is actually pretty deadly. Without pain, injuries and illnesses go undetected because pain is just a signal that alerts something is there. Burns will still occur, bones will still break, infections in the eye can still happen, and without the feeling of pain, they go unnoticed and thus untreated. Still, they make for some pretty freaky stunts. Before we go to number 1, here's an honorary mention and a shout out to all those party hard people. The Ozzy Osbourne gene. This famous Prince of Darkness is 71 and counting, despite his lifetime of intense partying filled with cocaine, sleeping pills, LSD, alcohol, and so much more, to the point that even he himself was baffled as to why he lived this long. So in 2010, American researchers analyzed Ollie's entire DNA and found that the answer lied within his genes. He had several hundred mutation variants that scientists have never seen before, including ones that affected how his body absorbed all the recreational drugs and alcohol. His genes coded for proteins that broke them down faster than the average person, allowing him to live this long. Anyone else would have died at a very young age. Of course, this does not mean he's completely immune to the effects of the drugs, as he now suffers tremors and Parkinson-like disease symptoms. Coming in at number 1. No sleep? No problem. A mother and daughter studied by American researchers have been found to have a mutation to their DEC2 gene that affects their sleep cycle. Dubbed as having the Thatcher gene, named after Margaret Thatcher, who was famous for running Britain with only 4 hours of sleep per day, people who have this mutation are able to function fully with lesser sleep than the average person. Please note, this is a real medical condition. Scientists have already proven that if one continually gets less than 6 hours of sleep per night, there will be negative impacts on the body. But people with this kind of mutation are genetically immune to these impacts and can function completely fine with only 4 hours of sleep, and it occurs less than 1% of the population. So please, don't think you can have this power unless you're tested. The reason why I personally think this is number 1 is because Marvel and DC haven't exactly made any superheroes based on this genetic ability yet, so I think it's quite unique and relevant. And there you have it, the top 5 superhumans among us. Keep in mind though that there are plenty of other people who have the same mutation, but probably has it worse. Mutations are funny like that, you never know when it'll happen. But, like I've said in the first video, advancement in science has allowed us to clone and modify genes to the point that leaves all of us wondering, can we build a superhero? Thank you, and stay tuned for my next post.